Well, welcome to the Strong Life Coach podcast, where we speak life, coach life, write life, and lead life. Today, I'm joined in the podcast studio by one of my great friends, one of my best friends, Michael Forde. We've been friends for probably, I think, 15 years. Is that right, Mike?
Yep, about 15 years, man.
15 years. And he's doing some incredible work in the community up in the DFW area. He does an incredible job volunteering as a coach. He connects like a champion with the children. He's been doing it for 7 years. He just got into the soccer program as well. Michael Forde, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm just thrilled to be here, man. I've been seeing your podcast and stuff that you've been doing. I'm glad you could have me on the show, man. Always a pleasure when we link up anyway, man, because it's like we could talk for hours, man, about pretty much anything. It don't even seem like you have to have a topic. Yeah,
I feel like there's so many conversations you and I have had over the years where I've thought, I wish this conversation was recorded. One, for other people to listen to, but two, for me to just go back to, so I think that's something special for me about the podcast setting is some of my best friends, us connecting, talking, and then really getting the chance to have it recorded, to share it with other people, but even for us to be able to come back to, it's a beautiful idea of us being able to have access to this for the rest of, our lives, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you hit on that too anyway, but it's one of those things that I think you're only allotted so many people in your life that you connect with on a certain level where you can have those type of conversations, because each people have those like you. You're not going to connect with everybody. So that's what makes it great though, man. So, yeah. That's
right. Yes, right. I remember, talking on the basketball court or your apartment or my place and over meals. And now I know you got a chance to walk in with me at my wedding. So, all those, I think, moments mean a whole lot to me. And I think you have a great gift. I've told you this before. You have a gift of communication that I feel like learning from over the last 15 years. Your ability to storytell and connect. And I think you have a great gift in it. So I'm excited to see, where that's going to take you. I think it's already taking you into the community and making an impact that we can't even calculate. But I'm also excited because I know I think it's going to take you even further places because you really do a phenomenal job connecting with people.
Oh, thanks, man.
So let's jump off the podcast and the questions with what motivated you to start volunteering as a basketball coach?
That's a good question first. It goes back all the way to when I was I've been playing basketball my whole entire life. I remember my twin brother and our mom and dad would ask us what we want to be when we grew up, and we said we want to be basketball players. Mm-hmm. And then as you get older and you continue to want to play it, reality starts to set in, especially around college or whatever. And the main thing that stuck out in my life that made me want to say, hey, I want to coach and I want to change or be better is, in high school, I played for a high school, and I got hurt, and then I was out for like a couple of weeks, and then when I came back, the coach had given my jersey away, and he gave it to another person. He gave it to another person who was already on the team, and that person already had a jersey. He just wanted my jersey number, and yeah, I know, and I remember as a freshman in high school letting that coach have it, how I felt like it was wrong morally, ethically, and all that. And I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But I remember saying that, you don't do that. And it was a lot of politics involved because the kid that wanted my jersey number, he was the brother of a boy that was on varsity. So I feel like it's one of those things where they were playing favoritism, because I feel like if he would have got hurt, they wouldn't have been trying to let me have his jersey, Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting cut my freshman year in high school, and I was maybe out like a game or two, or maybe a practice a while. But the head coach came down and said, I'm back on the team, because I guess maybe his conscience was wearing on him that other people had done worse than that, and they still stayed on the team. I was just voicing my opinion. So long story short, which I learned my lesson from it, but I also said I want to be a better player and a better coach if I ever got the chance, is what happened was the coach really never played me that much. So I went through a lot of my high school years not really getting to show my talent. And he did it very strategically, I think, and he did it very what's the word, politically correct, in the sense that he would start me sometimes, but then I would never play the whole game. Like, he'll start me, and then he'll make, or I'll get in like at the end of each quarter with 2 minutes, and then I couldn't even really complain to my other players or my teammates or even people in the stands, because they say, well, we saw you get in. You got in. You played every quarter. But he did it good. Like, I would play 2 minutes at the end of each quarter, or the whole fourth quarter. Like, I would miss the whole game, but I'd play the whole fourth quarter. And we were a pretty good team. We were blowing out teams. So nobody was really paying attention to little stuff like that. They couldn't. Or, you know, when a team's blowing somebody else out, you're not looking at that kid that's only getting 2 minutes or whatever. It's like that kind of thing. So what happened was that the head coach left that year, and a new coach came in and brought his whole new staff. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to go to play JV, and I won't be with the freshman coach no more. But the new head coach that came in, he brought his whole new staff, and his new staff wanted to work with the freshmen. So our freshman coach he moved up with us to JV, and he pretty much did me the same way, barely let me play. I was getting in, whatever. And I had one of those, and I'm kind of glad it happened, because it motivated me, and it made me want to be better as a person. It made me think more how I talked, watch how I talked, because I'm a very passionate person, and it made me want to actually play basketball. That's one of the reasons why when I went to Northwest Vista, I really wanted to make sure I played on team, got on team, and showcased my talent just one last time. And it's also one of the reasons why I call myself the comeback kid. You know, no matter what happens in life, man, just keep on trying to come back, you know.
Yes.
Just, even if you just get knocked down once, just keep on getting back up. So
I love that. No, I love the mentality, and I think what's powerful about it is when you talk to any successful person, you could also ask them, right in line with their success, you could ask them how has failure shaped their journey. And you'll hear story after story of people who are successful in all types of failure they went through. But sometimes on the outside looking in, you don't even get a chance to see it unless you ask, right? Because people might see you, you know, you're making an impact on the community. You're changing kids' lives. You're creating these opportunities for them to have relationships with each other. You're, you know, giving these pep talks. You're optimistic. You know, the parents know who you are. The kids know who you are. And they may not immediately know, or they certainly would not know about the struggles you've been through and what shaped you. But it's true that sometimes these shortcomings, or maybe even sometimes when people don't treat us in a fair way, can shape us into the people that we become, which again, I think you're somebody who's making a positive impact on the community. And you think about, the question was like, what motivated you to start? And you went way back into this time where you really felt excluded and overlooked, and how that's given you motivation today to make a positive difference, which I just think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And see, just to expound on that though, too, one of the reasons why I wanted to coach is because even when I'm coaching, it gives me a chance to kind of see that kid that probably isn't going to play that much in his whole life, or who hasn't played that much up until now, and give him the chance and the motivation to think that, yes, he's part of the team, he can be great. And even throughout the whole year, it's one of the things I do. I try and make sure all my players, and this is the thing, I'm not about, because I know that this generation nowadays is about giving out trophies to everybody. I'm not about giving out trophies to everybody, but I am about rewarding my players for certain things that only they do. And I try and do that with a ribbon or something, because it says, hey, you're good at this. You're good at this thing. So if I have one player of the year, I just got one player of the year. If I have one defensive player of the year, I just have one defensive player of the year. So it's one of those things that it's like, hey, I'm good at this. And when they continue to play with me, you see them kind of have a little bit more, for lack of a better word, umph in them, like a little bit more pizzazz and hype, and you know, I can do this about them, and I feel like I had something to do with that. Where I think high school coaches, like my high school coach in general, depending on what happens, they kind of lose that. Like they feel like, but they forget we're still kids too. We need a lot of motivation, and I think that my coach, that when I talked to him, when I said what I said about, you don't do that, give him my jersey away, I think he was a little bit hurt that I talked to him like that in front of the rest of the team. So he did what he did. But, I look at it from both sides now. You got to understand the player, and as a coach, you got to know what kind of things you're doing, and even be able to say apologize. Like, even when you lose, you got to be able to tell your players, hey, I think I messed up on this. I'm sorry, because I think that gives them a chance to look at you as a human, and that you mess up and that they can mess up too. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Right on. And I do like the element of, because I think we often will hear the criticism of, this next generation, everybody's getting a ribbon, everybody's getting the trophy, and they don't know how. In other words, they're kind of saying like they don't know how to lose, or they don't know how to be not the. Go ahead.
Yeah, be not the best, or except not being like, I don't know. And I try and teach my players though too. Though, like, I'm pretty sure you understand that, growing up playing basketball, because you just said it a few seconds ago though too. It helps you get better. Losing. You got to embrace it.
Uh-huh. And I like how you didn't just throw that out of, does that mean only one person gets it, but finding unique ways to recognize people who excel, right, in different elements of the game, and make sure that's recognized, because there is something about, and I think you added this point of, as you recognize certain attributes that they bring to the game, you give them extra incentive, extra motivation, extra drive to get to that next, to keep pushing that narrative, right? Or not even to continue to grow and expand in the way that, hey, Coach Forde encouraged me about this. I want to keep on getting that encouragement. I want to keep on excelling in this area.
Right. And see this. See, even when I was in high school though too, the little minutes, and it affected me in college too when I started playing in college. The little minutes that I played in high school gave me second doubts about how good I was when I got to college, because I felt like even though I was good enough, I didn't feel like I was good enough because I didn't have the experience that I know I needed to be on the college level now. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I've only played like 2 minutes every quarter. So it's like, and that's just an average. There are sometimes I may have because you got to call timeout, got to wait till the ref blows you in. So I was just giving like a roundabout, but there were some games, fourth quarter, it'd be 1 minute or it might be 3 minutes, but and I got in. So I never really got to have the whole vibe and feel of the court, of the game. And it does something to you as a player. And even in high school, you don't have the presence of mind to actually communicate that to your coach, especially if you feel like you made him mad at a certain time. So now I remember getting to college, I feel like, man, I don't even know if I'm that good, or how well I can play, because I've never been in certain situations. And a lot of it, I was just learning on the fly, being on the fly. And so now when I coach, I understand that you have to be able to make a player feel like, hey, they can do this, and especially the ones that aren't going to play that much or that haven't played that much. You got to make them feel like they're just as important as the coldest player on the team, because truthfully, a lot of times the coldest player on the team probably doesn't need any motivation.
Right.
You know how it is on the court, because those are the ones usually just be talking noise as soon as they come in the gym, and you're like, why is this kid talking? Oh, because he think he cold. You know those kids. You don't even have to see. You hear them come in. You be tying your shoes up. Everybody, Michael Jordan's here. Like, man.
So one of the things I mentioned in the intro here is that you also do soccer. Did you ever play soccer?
I never did. I did play one time. My dad. It's funny because but he was in the military, and we got shipped to Japan, the family. So we was out there, and he got us into soccer for some reason. I don't even remember requesting or asking my dad to sign us up. But when you're young and you look cute and everything, your parents just want to sign you up for everything, I guess. I don't know. But I remember it plain as day, and I don't remember learning anything. One thing I do remember learning is I remember it being cold as I don't know what out there. And I remember my mom and dad or people on the sideline saying stuff like, "Oh, move around, you'll get warm." And I felt like that was the stupidest thing in the world, because every time I moved around, it felt like it got colder because of the wind and the freezing or whatever. So, but I mean, as you get older, you understand that it doesn't make sense to move around. But I don't know. I thought that was stupid. But I can't remember anything from soccer. I was like first grade, 6 years old, and I can't remember anything I learned in soccer, but I was just out there.
So it's fascinating. So tell me about how you got into coaching in the soccer program, because you didn't play. So it's not like you go, hey, well, I know how to do this or do that. So how did you get into the coaching in the soccer program?
Well, one is just like back when I was young. I didn't request. I didn't ask. It's one of those things that I have a coworker, and I coached her son in basketball, and then her husband, he's been coaching soccer pretty much just as long, or if not longer, coaching soccer. And he needed help, and he knew that, or his wife was telling him how I worked with kids and how I also coached. And he's seen me coach too, his older son. And he needed an assistant coach. And he asked me, I think he called me and asked me if I wanted to coach or help him coach soccer. And I was like, yeah, man, I love working with kids. And I really, the funny thing is, I was kind of skeptical at first, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to be with him for, I guess, for as long as he coaches. Like, I'll be his assistant, because it's not even so much, because I love working with kids. It's not so much the soccer. It's the kind of players that, you know, are on the soccer team. I mean, you know, I don't know, once you get, you know, just as well as I do, once you get attached to people and make friendships or bonds, man, you just like, man, it's almost like my kids, man. I don't have any kids, but it's almost like, hey, as soon as you get off work, you're ready to go to practice and, you know, see your boys and see your players. So.
So what has it been like, I think, in that transition? Like, so what's been, I kind of know. Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What has it been like coaching soccer? So, what has it been like?
Exactly. For you? Okay, now there's a lot of similarities, but then there's a lot of differences. Of course, if you know just as well as I know, basketball, it's fast paced, and then there's a lot of scoring. And the thing that's different, that's challenging to me, is that soccer, it's pretty fast paced, but there's not as much scoring. So if you're not into that, it can get either boring, or you can get frustrated at times just even being a fan and watching, because you're like, they're doing all this moving around and nobody's scoring. So,
right.
But exactly. But the cool thing about it, I think, is that it's probably more fun, just like with baseball. I think it's the same kind of concept where it's not that fast, but it's just not as much scoring. It's very fun watching little kids do it, because they're always doing something that'll make you laugh or make you like turn your head or make you drop your jaw. And it's the whole irony that they're trying to really replicate what they see in the pros or replicate what they've seen in practice, and they either don't do it well or they do it very well, and you're like, wow. So, but the thing that's really different about soccer, I'd really have to say, is like the certain like rules. It seems like there's a little bit more rules and I guess it's a little league, you know. You got to throw the ball in a certain way. You got to kick the ball a certain way. They won't let them hit the ball with their head at that age, and so. Yeah, and I'm learning how to kick the ball with your inside of your foot, and when to kick it just head on, and how to stop the ball, that kind of stuff. Now, the funny thing is, to me, I feel like it's a lot easier to play soccer than basketball, but then there's some parts as far as scoring where it makes it like it's harder than basketball, because you could probably score in basketball before you could in soccer, but I think soccer is still a little bit more easier to play.
Gotcha. Well, I think the whole story that you told about becoming the soccer coach, I think there's a principle there, because I think you excelled with one area in your responsibility, right? Like as a basketball coach, and you obviously connected with the woman's child, and to the point where she would be, when somebody endorses you to somebody else, and really endorses you to somebody else to have greater influence, I always think that they're endorsing you because you made a difference, you made a positive impact, and they want to see you influence more people, right? So it's like in some ways you were You were faithful. You were reliable with the responsibility put before you, and you excelled at it so much that they wanted you to give you some more responsibility to use the gifts that you have to connect with the children, to help them to grow, help them to have a good time while they're doing it, but still, again, teaching them the game. So I think it's a testament to your how you excelled on the basketball element to get more opportunities to influence more people and on the soccer side.
Yeah. And, I mean, the funny thing is when he asked me, I felt like, well, why are you asking me to coach? And then he kind of let me know a lot of it is, and even when I coach my boys, I play around a lot with kids. I love having fun. But when I start to coach basketball, which I'm pretty sure they saw it as a family, I get pretty serious. So I'm thinking, because I even did it even with soccer, it was time to get serious and it was time to be locked in. And a lot of times when practice isn't going on, I think that's probably something that's an element that could be added to, like, his team is like the camaraderie I have with the players, like asking them questions, playing around with them and having fun, just to lighten the mood a bit so it doesn't all feel like it's all like they're in the pros or something, because they're still kids. And when you're able to get them to loosen up, I think that's when you get the best out of them, especially at this age. So, and I think I do that better, and with in all humility, I think I do that better than a lot of coaches nowadays, because sports are so big nowadays. I see so many coaches yelling, and I fell victim to that too, and I do yell at my kids. But that's why I make sure that when the game's not going on or when we're in practice, you got to make stuff to make them remember, hey, I'm out here having fun, because if you're not having fun doing the sport, it's going to be very hard to win or even play at your best because you're not having fun. So when you go to the park and play basketball, what are you trying to do? You're trying to have fun,
So and I think I've spoken to a number of coaches, right, in a variety of sports, but one of the things that it seems to be unanimous that the most frustrating part of the coaching experience is working with some, not all, but some of the parents. But have you seen something similar, or what have you seen in that space?
Yeah, well, see, the funny thing is, okay, so I've been coaching 7 years, or I'm going into my 7th year, and my last season that I coached would have to be the first time that I pretty much had the parents weren't really on my side as well as the parents before them were. And it was the first season this happened. And then when I coached soccer, I saw too, like, how dealing with the parents is very challenging, like getting them to show up to practice when another kid has another sport, stuff like that. And then with my basketball team, certain things like where you got parents who played, or they're when they see something wrong on the court, they're only looking at it from a parent's perspective and their kid's perspective. So when they come to you with the complaint, it's not like, hey, I like how you did this, because they never really say what they liked. If a parent comes complaining, it's always about what you did wrong as a coach. And I'm one of those coaches, hey, I'll take the criticism as long as when I'm doing something good for the team or for your kid, you're going to shout that out too. But they never do that. But they want you to do that with your kid. They don't want you to just yell at your kid. I want you to say some positive stuff. So let's do that all the way around the world. Like, if you want me to do that, you should be doing that to me when you give complaints. So that's the problem, or I want to say problem, but that's what I dealt with this last time. I had a couple parents talking about their kids' playing time, or what I'm doing with their kid, and even complaining about, like, certain plays that I've done. And I did bring that to their attention, like a lot of stuff that I'm doing or what I'm saying, I'm not just thinking about your kid, ma'am or sir. I'm thinking about the whole team. And there had been times where I'm not judging or how I'm dealing with your kid based off just the game and what he's doing out there. I'm judging him off the stuff, how he's acting on the bench, judging about how he's acting in the practice, because all of it's connected, whether you think so or not. If your kid is serious about playing in this game, he's going to be serious at practice. He's going to be serious on the bench. Just don't be looking at the game, sir or ma'am, because if you're just looking at that, because the way they act on when they're not on the court, it does affect them on the court. And it's kind of hard to explain that to some parents, because if they're over, and I told them, if they're over there, like, playing with their fingernails or looking up in the sky and stuff during practice, what do you think's happening when they're sitting on the bench?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then at the same time, and I had to stop a couple practices and have them run. And then I said, if they're doing that, what do you think's happening when the ref is blowing the whistle? Are they dialed in? And, you know, stuff like that, you know. So it just gives them parents something to think about, but they never look at stuff like that. They're only looking at what their kid is doing, not what they're not doing. But I'm the coach.
Right. Right. And I think I've heard that from coaches is the coach is not thinking about the view is not limited to the 90 seconds that the parent is complaining about. The coach is thinking about is it in totality. You know, they're with the child on the court, day in and day out at the practices, on the bench with them, you know, around them. They're seeing the way they interact with the teammates. They're seeing everything they bring. So there's so much that goes into the decisions outside of the 90 seconds that the parent is complaining about. But I also like the point you mentioned about having a set of standards for the parents, because really, if we're aiming to help each other to get better, then hopefully in all of our relationships, we're providing more uplifting content than criticism. And criticism is needed. It's important. It's a part of the game. But
it's so easy.
But yeah, right. It's easy to point and criticize.
Exactly.
But the idea of being somebody, like building the foundation of the relationship. I always love the quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So have you shown that you with good uplifting, you know, feedback as well?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
No. And it's basically what I've learned, and I've learned on the fly. I've learned so many things on the fly of being a coach because, you know, each year it's a new challenge. Each year it's a new player and stuff like that. But I've learned to sort of say some of those things at the start of the season on the first practice and let those parents know these things. Like, hey, we're all here together, and just like you're not a perfect parent and you're not going to do everything right, I'm not a perfect coach. I'm not going to do everything right. I'm not going to see everything. And, you know, we're all, if we're all going to, and I remember one season I had a great season. I think we lost in the first game of the playoffs, and I remember being very critical of myself because of that, because we were like better than the team that beat us. But I remember saying to myself, I think one of the reasons why we did so well, it had nothing to do with the X's and O's. I feel like everybody was on board on the same level, from the parents all the way down to the kids, to me, everybody. So I feel like, and it sounds kind of weird, but I feel like any team that wins, because I feel like people look at Golden State Warriors, the basketball team that won like 73-9 and went so well. A lot of people look at them like, oh, they have great players. But I'm going to tell you like this, and you know just as well as anybody, because you played sports, that if you don't have good chemistry and a good a work ethic and things, everything that goes on without the X's and O's, if those aren't working well, you can have the best players in the world, you know, and you still won't be able to get anything accomplished. So, because I had some team moms that were bomb, like they'd be making cupcakes and bringing extra stuff, and I'm like, I mean, and they weren't asked to do this, but you gotta understand as a player what that does for you. Like, it makes you be like, oh man, we're all in on this. The parents bringing stuff. I had parents making T-shirts and everything, and I mean, I didn't have them doing this. They were doing it on their own, and they were parents of the players. And when you have that kind of thing, it sparks something in you, especially as a kid. Like, man, this is, and it kind of probably can make you feel like I'm in the NBA. You know, they're making shirts, and I'm and that kind of thing. Hey, I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's that kind of element. Because I go to some of these football games, and they got announcers, and they're in the rec. It's like rec football, but they got announcers, and they got music playing after they score. And I'm all like, wow, this is like a real game, They got their names on the back of their jerseys and everything. And so that's another thing, though, too. Like, even when I'm coaching, I want to give them so much of the element that makes it feel like, hey, this is special. I'm playing for a different team. Like, you can look at us, or on the inside, it just feels like a whole different team. Like, I try and give them warm-ups, game balls, and they're not actually real game balls, but it's like the little mesh balls, like squish balls that are like stretch relievers. If you, what I want to try and start doing is each player or each game, there's going to be two people that get player of the game, and the one with the most game balls at the end of the year gets to be the player of the year. And it won't be one of those things like coaches choosing favorites. It's just proven. You can see, and I'll have me and my assistant coach choose those players, and you can see that, hey, he's got player of the year because he's got all the game balls or most of the game balls in comparison to everybody else. And it's going to be two players that get the game ball just so it won't look like, because sometimes there'll be one player that's better than everybody and he'll get a game ball throughout the whole year. So the second game ball gives other players a chance to just show effort. And even if it's just defense, they get the player of the game ball too, because there's always going to be that one player that just probably better or scores a lot. So they might always get a game ball or have a higher chance, but it gives other people a chance to get a game ball too. So you can't really say too much. So,
I like it. I like that. So let me ask you, in what you do in this coaching setting, this coaching as a volunteer, what do you find most rewarding about coaching in that volunteer setting?
It's a couple of things, and I'm glad you asked that though too. But one, throughout coaching, you start to see how well players from different backgrounds, they communicate with each other and talk to each other on and off the court. And even me, myself, the things that I've been able to learn and talk to the players. But I love seeing, like, it's probably one of the coach's greatest joys to be on the court and talk to him. Hey, communicate. You're supposed to talk on the court. And, you know, at the first few games, they're all shy. They don't really know each other. Like, I don't feel like saying this, but like maybe the third game in the season or somewhere in practice, you see a kid pull another kid to the side and start pointing to the court like they're saying something about the game. And I didn't tell them to do that, and they just did it on their own. And then I like to see, like, before the game, how they're talking about, like, little stupid stuff too, maybe girlfriends or tennis shoes and what they're going to get for Christmas. And then they just kind of develop a bond. And I feel like I have something to do with that because I try and make, us feel like, hey, we can all talk to each other. So by the end of the season, when I see how well they're getting in contact with each other and maybe hanging out after or being friends with each other on social media and stuff like that, it's very rewarding. Like, it makes me feel like, it feels like, I don't know, like when you see a movie like Remember the Titans or Coach Carter and you see how the coach had an impact on them, like that's what I feel, and that's why I feel so rewarding. And you get to see what kind of kids are out there in the city, and the funny thing is they inspire me. There's some kids that they got some great work ethic and focus that I wish I had when I was at that age. And they may not be as good as I was when I was at the age, but their focus and determination to get better is way better than, and it's inspiring. I had a kid on my basketball team. He was the sixth man of the year. I think was it the sixth man? I think it was the sixth man of the year. I gave him the sixth man of the year award. He turned around the next season and got my player of the year award. And to me, yes. And I'm telling you, it has really nothing to do with his scoring. Like when you think of player of the year, you think of somebody that, oh man, he just turned around. No, this kid turned around and he was like the fire that helped our team like feel like we can win. Not just win, but he helped just by the way he played. And I could yell at him and it just goes off his back like water. He doesn't shrivel up or anything. And that kind of stuff added to his player of the year. Like, he responded well to the coach. He was talking to the rest of the players. He would interact with every player on the team. Now that's player of the year to me, in my opinion. Because we really weren't that good. But players of the year is not always about coaching. Player of the year isn't always about points or scoring. A lot of it has to do about how well you're reacting to what the coach is telling you and how you're able to get the team to be on the same level of what the coach expects of us. That's player of the year.
Wow. I'm hearing that there's an element of character that's being upheld, not just performance, right? And exactly. In being around basketball, there's different times where the best performer at times can be somebody with the worst attitude.
Oh, yeah.
And then you feel, I mean, and you tell me what it's like, but you feel almost resistant to award like the guy with the bad attitude. He might have the most talent, but he has the best talent but the worst attitude. It's the troublesome combination. It's difficult to again, you don't want to downplay it, their great performance, but you also are hesitant to give them additional recognition because they're maybe struggling with arrogance as it is, and you don't want to contribute more of that.
Exactly. You don't want to promote that or feel like they don't have anything to change. Exactly. And I dealt with that. And it's a learning experience. And I remember having a player just like that, and you explained him right to the T. And it made me think of what things I need to do just in case I ran into a player like that in the future. And I'm telling you, if I get a player like that, I'm ready. I can tell you I'm ready. I'm actually praying I get a player like that. Not in a bad way, but in the sense that it helps me in my coaching career, and I know now I'm ready, better and well prepared to deal with a player like that. I mean, you always think you're prepared without having experiences until you actually have the experience. Now you actually have the experience to go along with what you think you can do. So yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
And the funny thing is though too, that player or those players are the ones that you really want to try and affect change, because you want to remind them that it's bigger than basketball. Because when it's bigger than basketball, it actually helps basketball. When you're only one-minded and just thinking about basketball, you're limited. Because I feel like some of the best players, they're not just thinking basketball; they're thinking about character and how, so. And it's hard to explain it to some of these kids. They think you're just saying that to make them listen to you better, but it's true. It's not just about basketball. If you listen well all across the board, even in your classroom, it will help when it comes to basketball. But don't just think you're just going to turn it on when basketball comes. I tell all those kids, I can tell which one of y'all or some of y'all that don't be paying attention in class because you're not paying attention right now. and some of them like, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I like about what you said right now too is you said the experience of having a situation like that is prepared you for the next one. And I know that when it comes to coaching and growth is that sometimes the only step that's clear for you is the one right ahead of you. But then once you take that step, you make that move, then you get so much experience and you learn so much from it. So I'm just thinking sometimes you probably heard the phrase like the paralysis of analysis. We could analyze, well, what do I do when I get this player? Or what do I do when I get that player? Or I'm not ready to be a coach yet. Let me hold on till I'm more prepared and more ready. But
exactly.
Stay there all day, every day, and never actually make the steps to do the coaching gig. But then you've done the coaching gig, and what you're able to have because of that is you have the experience now with a variety of situations you've been in to add value to people moving forward. So even this idea that you're ready for that kid who has the best talent with the worst attitude, that you're ready to shape and support him.
Yep, I'm ready.
So, what unique challenge have you overcome in coaching?
I guess I kind of just hit on it right now. The challenge of dealing with those kind of players. As a coach, though, too, I think one of the main challenges is so when I first started coaching, I didn't have you don't have any experience. I remember when I first called a timeout, you have so many young minds and so many players looking at you to what to do. And as it went on, and that was my main challenge, will I be able to relay my thoughts, my ideas in a way that actually they're able to embrace, understand, or just take hold of. And as it started out, it was it wasn't a hard challenge, but that was one of the challenges. And I feel like as it's going on, I've been able to find my comfortability, I guess you could say, or my strengths and how to actually come across these kids. Because whenever you do something for the first time, you could say you want to do it like this, but it's not always going to come out like that. And if you're not able to look into your players' eyes and if to you it doesn't look like they believe you, or they can understand what you're trying to get across to them, it's going to be that much harder when they get on the court and actually try and do what you want them to do. And it goes back to what I was saying with like trying to have camaraderie with them. If they can't feel that they can be cool with you sometimes, and I know it sounds weird because you don't want to feel like you're just their friend, but then again, this is a volunteer thing. It's a rec league and they're kids. If they can't feel that they can relax, it's hard for them to go out there and feel like they can focus too at this age, because a lot of these kids at this level, they're immature. So it's not always going to be they're not always going to be on the court dialed in all the time. So you got to be able to get them back on it, but in a way to make them feel like, hey, you're allowed to do that sometimes because you're a kid. So that was one of the main challenges. And I mean, I think that's going to be one of the challenges as I just keep on doing this. Because even when you coach at an older age and they start looking like men and growing beards, they're still kids. They are still kids. I don't care if they're 15, 16, 17, and some of them are 18, 19 in high school, and they're still kids. And even if they're 18 or 19, they might be old enough or consider themselves men, but compared to the age that I am, you're still a kid, buddy. So you just got to kind of understand that I've been there, and you just want to make them feel like you have their best interests at heart. And if you, and I feel like I've gotten there, and I think I'm getting a lot better at it than when I first started. That's a challenge in and of itself. I think that's the same thing like when you're teaching. If you're a teacher, if your students can't feel like you have their best interests at heart, sometimes it's going to be hard for them to perform or do well on a test or even a work assignment, because they go home and the only person they really have that has their best interest at heart is mom, but mom doesn't really know what the teacher knows. So I feel like you got to make the kids feel like you do care to a certain extent, because I feel like you can get the best out of them.
Yes. And I think you bring up a great point about connecting and conveying that you care, and even like what's the best way to get the best out of them, right? You know, and that's it right there. Like if and it happened to me the other day, right? Like one of my friends saw one of the videos I did online, and I did a speech in front of a lot of people, and he called me to give me feedback, pretty much to tell me how I can improve it. How and he was telling me how I was projecting really hard, and now mind you, this guy's super successful, right, in his business and what he does. Right. So when he was telling me I was projecting really hard, like, he's done this amazing job in my life in investing in me, looking out for me, supporting me. He has cultivated care in our relationship. So if he's coming at me with anything, like, and I told him this, you have so much relational currency built in that you can come at me about anything, anytime, at any place, and I'm going to really take it from somebody who cares about me and who wants what's best for me. Plus, you're super successful, and I want to be as successful as you. So you see what I'm saying? So I see what you're saying, but even this, like in that situation, I was projecting deliberately hard, because in the physical situation that I was in, it was a big room. I didn't have a microphone. The lapel mic I had was for my phone. It wasn't for the room. So
gotcha.
I was projecting deliberately to hit that back wall with some of the leadership team that was back there. Now, he didn't know that because he wasn't in the room, which is completely okay. But for somebody to care enough to initiate a conversation to give me a pointer, I always want to be ready to accept that. But he just did what you just described, which was, if I can show that I have their best interest in mind, like this guy truly has best interest in mind, would never say anything just to be picky or critical, but really wants me to do my best. So,
and I'm pretty sure he told you some things that he liked too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. He's one of those guys that, you know, talking. I think even the phrase he uses, like, "Man, I'm seeing what you're putting out there, man. It's fire. It is good." And then he proceeded to tell me a little bit about some of the constructive feedback.
That's cool. That's cool. And it's good to have people like that in your life, because I feel like, and you could probably attest to this too, though. I feel like it's very rare to have those kind of people who can have that kind of impact, both where it's good, where they can say something good, but then turn around and say something, and with them not being in your family. Because it's almost like people that aren't in your family, you kind of got to be skeptical. Do they really have my best interest at heart? Because family, even if your family doesn't have your best interest at heart, you know in the back of your mind, they probably do. They probably just doing it wrong, or they're supposed to have my best interest at heart. So it's a lot easier to take criticism from them, or it should be a lot more easier to take criticism from them than outsiders. So to have an outsider do it and have that, it just feels good, man, because it's almost like you're like family now in a way. Like I can hear what you're saying, I can apply it, and it feels comfortable.
Right. And he's one of those guys where every time I speak to him, he gives me some energy, like something good, how he believes in me, how far along I am. Then he'll give me, I call it, he equips me. He'll give me some, like, hey, get this book next, or hey, do this training, or he'll give me a task like, man, like the next step for you would be to do this. And I'm big because, again, he has the success I want to have. I'm big on, I'm going to go execute on his input, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give him the feedback on what I learned from executing on the book he gave me to read, or the training he told me to go to, or a small group he told me to go start up. I'm going to come back and let him know what I'm learning. So it's become it's materializing even into a partnership, which I'm really excited about. But him and I are getting together on Wednesday to discuss more. So
that's cool.
Yes. So let me ask you, when it comes to your preparation, right? So you're giving pre-game speeches, a pre-game speech, a mid-game speeches. You're giving a post-game speech on a regular basis. So I'm curious, how do you get prepared for the games?
It's pretty. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to get a little bit more detailed as I get more into coaching, but right now, at this point where I'm at, it's pretty much the same thing that I did when I was in college and high school. And most of it is just pretty much listening to music, maybe listening to some kind of inspirational music with a video at the same time, like whether it's your Will Smith, or Will Smith has a lot of Denzel Washington, and they have them on YouTube, and they're always playing over some type of music. And it's stuff to think about, like little life quotes or athletic quotes or sports quotes, and just ways. And funny thing is, to get me hyped, sometimes I do just look up certain quotes, just to, like, ways to think about stuff. And even when I'm coaching my players, I'll throw out a quote just to have them, and something that's around their level, because right now I'm coaching 12 and under kids, so I can't throw out something where they're like, why did coach say that? I got to throw out something that they can kind of understand and apply on their level. So, and then one of the things I do to get ready is I'm always thinking about maybe the player that's not so good. I think about what ways I could probably motivate them or say something to them before the game, just to get them to lighten up. Because I know when you're not that good and you come into a game and it's your first season, sometimes you're probably a little bit more tense than probably anybody else in the court. So having your coach come up to you and talk to you about certain things that has nothing to do with basketball, I really do think about that, and I think it's very good for a player to have, because they're still kids, and I think we needed that even when we were in high school, and some coaches, they forget to do that. So that's what I think about, or that's how I get prepared for a game a lot of times. Or sometimes I even watch basketball too. I mean, I guess that's pretty much a known or a given, like before a basketball game, because I always feel like if I watch something, there's going to be something in that game that I see that I might need to tell my players, or that I could even incorporate in the game plan. So there's always something that and that's what's so kind of beautiful about the game of basketball. And because you played, it's always something that you can be like, I can do this, I can do that. So yeah,
I like it. Well, I love the element of being a student of the game and finding different ways to get inspired, whether it's music, speeches, or again watching the game. I think that's or even looking up quotes. Those are I think elements that I can see this it continuing to add value, and especially the more you do it, you can see what speeches seem to like hit home, and then which ones, hey, I've given speeches where I'm going, man, I wish I could do that again, along the way.
Yeah.
So, I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that hits a lot. Like after the game, I'm beating myself up about what I could have did better every game.
So I know you had a couple of questions you wanted to ask me, a little role reversal. So why don't you go, you go with your first question?
Yeah. Now, how long were you doing because I know even when I was down there in San Antonio, even when I think a little bit after college, you were doing that for a while. How long did you do going to the jails and speaking? How long did you do that?
I started in 2000 so I started going to the juvenile center first in 2011. So then I think I did that for a year, and I really and it might sound weird to people to hear this from me, but I wasn't feeling like the connection because there was such high turnover.
With what? You didn't feel the connection with what? The juvenile?
So what I mean is, I would go to the juvenile one week, and then I'll be back there the next week, and it'll be a complete brand new set of people. Again, which is fine, but what I was kind of looking for is something that I could go back to the same people week after
I know
week,
what you mean.
And build it as a long-term investment with it. Yeah, and the connection. So that's when I transitioned in 2013. In January, I started going to the adult prison, so the men's facility, where it was the closest state prison to San Antonio, Texas, and I was doing that for 2 or 3 years, and getting the chance again. It was a great experience. Some of the most grateful people ever, and probably it has to do with my age and my energy that I bring. But
you think so?
Because a lot of the other volunteers were older. A lot of them were 60s, 70s, 80s. So you just get a different vibe. You get a different flavor. So.
That kind of brings me to my next question though too. Since you're dealing with the adults and you're dealing with the youth, I'm pretty sure there's different kinds of situations, or even situations just in general, dealing from just one in general. It doesn't have to be in comparison to. But what challenges have you had? And it doesn't even have to be with that, but even with motivational speaking, because I feel like even if you're with the jails, like the youth or the adults, you're still kind of motivational speaking. But with your motivational speaking that you've been doing now, or just all of it in general, what has been the most challenging thing? Because I tell you like this, I still want to do that. And man, I don't think I've spoken in front of, I can't say I've spoken in front of, but I guess it's theater art, so you're not really speaking to people. But what do you think is the most challenging thing with motivational speaking or being a life coach?
For me, it's I call it to let go of my ego, because I believe the message has to flow through me as the speaker, but the credit, the glory, the admiration doesn't have to come to me. Now, and if I understand that, it's an interesting paradox, because if I understand fundamentally, this is not about making myself look good, it's about bringing glory to me, or bringing admiration to me. The more I understand that's not what this is about, and that's not my purpose, as weird as it is, the more I make it not about that, the more I actually get a lot more of the admiration. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you mean. So and then I think it's a lot easier to give across your story or whatever you're trying to get across too.
Right. And something I share often is people want to hear your success story, but they'll want to hear it more if you tell them the struggle first. It's like
right. You told me about that. I remember us talking about that. Yeah.
Right. So Now, but it's challenging because it's counterintuitive. Like our nature when we meet people is to be positive, uplifting, tell people the best parts of us. Like you don't meet somebody and go, hey, let me tell you the worst part of me,
No, you don't.
This is not really the way it starts. But as a communicator, I think one of the great paradoxes that it's involved with communication is if I'm willing to talk about my weakness, then I become more powerful. Like the more I talk about my weakness, the more powerful I get. And if I can be authentic and people know, hey, I'm somebody that's going to speak real. I'm going to tell you about the worst parts of me because I want to bring out the best parts of you. If I can do that, and people know that I'm a real guy, I have my shortcomings, weaknesses, I'm not afraid to tell you about them, then maybe I'm somebody who you can see as credible to give you some content that help me to grow and change along the way. So, so I think those are probably I think the big challenge. I think it's I don't know if it's ever going to change. Like that challenge of it's not about me. It's not about admiration coming to me, but really, I know why I'm speaking. I speak. I there's two phrases I use. It's to build people up and to benefit their lives. Like to build people, or another phrase I use. It's synonymous. It's I energize people and I equip them to elevate their lives. Like, but it's the same basic principles of why I'm speaking, but it's not about so I can look good. But if I prepare well enough, it's a byproduct is looking good, but that's not the explicit purpose.
No, I feel you. Yeah, man. But just hearing what you're saying though too, because I ultimately, and we talked about it too, I ultimately would like to get into some kind of motivational speaking, and I'm glad, and it's probably why this happened as far as you being able to tell me that it's not about me, because I feel like anybody, because we're all human, it's very easy to fall into that. It is about me, or I'm just thinking about how I can look good. Because if you're motivational speaking, that means, or even if you're life coaching, you're there in general just to make somebody else better. And sometimes I think you can forget that easily, especially if you start becoming real good. Like some coaches, even in basketball, or some people who are out there actually really giving out, they get so into the fact that they're so good that they forget, I'm here for somebody else, which if you know anything about jobs and life in general, most jobs in this life are to benefit somebody else. It doesn't matter what job you have, you're there for. And even the basketball players, like they think they're all this, but they're really there to entertain us fans. But that's a whole other thing. But it's just that if you think about the fact that all jobs are created to make somebody else's job better, then it should make you think when I do go to work, I do need to be better because I'm making somebody else's better. Somebody else's life better. Has nothing to do about me. Well, mostly nothing to do about me.
Right. And so I told you privately, so that I'll say it now that it's recorded, that, I think you have a great gift in that. I think you connecting with people in an entertaining way, in a down-to-earth way, but even the way that you even change up the way you change up your speech, your rhythm, right? Like you'll speed up and you'll slow down, and then you'll use variation in the way that you communicate. I think you're a natural communicator. I say that if and I believe I'm effective because a lot of people ask me to speak in different settings. I believe I am effective now, but I think a lot of my effectiveness comes from like deliberately working on it, refining the craft. I think you have a naturally way better gift than I do when it comes to communication.
Oh, wow.
So I think.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, man.
So I think you can do a great job just communicating in a variety of settings, including in the motivational space, because you're just life sharing. You're holding their attention and you're giving them principles that will really help them. So yeah. Now it's recorded. Now it's official that I believe it. I'm speaking that into your life, and yeah.
Well, thanks, man. And I think it's one of those things like what goes around comes around, and I feel like we're feeding off of each other, because even if I do it naturally, I think a lot of it comes from like just experiences and people I know. Because I would actually tend to say that from my mom to my teachers to my friends, and just my communications that I have with my friends probably helps out to that. And I'm pretty sure you could attest to that as well. So, and I really never thought about it, but I do thank you for saying like my rhythm and stuff. I never really thought that I really but I guess any speaker, and a lot of it may come from my acting background, because I like growing up, I want to be an actor too. And I took theater arts, and it could be something that I'm not even aware that I'm doing, that I may have learned that I can't even remember that I learned. But a lot of it is if you do certain things at certain times, or say certain things in a way, or at a rhythm, or not even just a rhythm, but at a pace, it'll have a different effect than if you were just saying all one way, because it'll give a different reaction.
So your pace changes, so you're not monotone, but then you bring us into stories with exact quotations, like all of that. It was a very unnatural thing for me. But then learning the value of, again, slowing down or speeding up to go real fast to grab their attention, but then to make small points one at a time, like those are all things I had to learn. But I think when I listen to you, the way that you communicate naturally will like grab and hold my attention. So
gotcha.
It's a great gift that you have.
And then I'm going to keep you informed about how my basketball season comes going, because I haven't met my team yet, except for like 2 or 3 players that I know of. But I really feel good about the season. So I'm going to let you know how it goes. And, yeah, man, I'm excited, man. I really feel good about the season. And I don't have no reason. It's just that something in my head, like, this is the year.
Come on. I like that. Yeah. I like it. Well, good. Well, if you're listening in, this is the Strong Life Coach Podcast. I'm here with Michael Forde. Of course, in the Strong Life Coach Podcast, we speak life, we coach life, we write life, and we lead life. Let me encourage you to, with this podcast, to like it. If you're listening to it on Apple, iTunes, give it that 5-star rating, leave a comment, and find somebody to share it with. Subscribe to it, of course. Find somebody to share. It might be somebody that you're thinking about who you would love to see them involved in the community, like Mike. Or you might somebody that you just want to help make a positive difference. I think Michael shared some great points about that on this podcast. So I just want to encourage you to, again, subscribe to this podcast, but also to share it with somebody that you think could really benefit from it. But again, Mike, thanks for joining me for a conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm excited about the people that are going to be able to listen to it.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.